Hello, new interns. We are back with Gabrielle Gomez, but I want to ask her first if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. That's really important. Do you go by Gabby or Gabrielle? What do you prefer?
I prefer Gabby. I go by that most of the time.
Gabby. Then we're here with Gaby Gomez, and she is a marketing intern currently for Television Academy Foundation, but she's going to explain more about that. I just wanted to tell you her title so you know where she's coming from. And, first things first, Gabby, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm always excited for these interviews. So we'll get started with a few, some softball questions. I think we'd all like to know, currently right now, where are you going to school? And, what's your major or minor if you have one? And when are you expected to graduate?
Okay, I'm going to Cal State Fullerton. I am a fourth year, so I'm expected to graduate this May. And then my major is cinema and television arts.
That's awesome. And yeah, I love a fellow CSU person.
Mhm.
And so in your free time, Gabby, what do you like to do outside of school, outside of work, or maybe even within those? But what do you like to do in your free time? Do you have any hobbies? And even, are there things, or do you have big time wasters that you have, like social media? What do you like to do?
I'm really passionate about the arts. So I do a lot of visual arts, so a lot of painting in my free time. I love drawing. I do a lot of jewelry making. I do cross stitching, like with my grandma. I do a lot of listening to music. I think music is such a beautiful like piece of art to both enjoy and create, but I'm more of a consumer of that.
Cool. Could you give us maybe one genre of music that you're kind of into?
Indie
Because I'm
pop.
curious.
Indie
Indie.
pop.
Thank
Mhm.
you. Okay. I love that as well. I mean, it breaks up into a bunch of little categories, but I'm sure
Mhm.
there's some overlap between what we like. Great. Well, thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
And so moving into more of your role, could you tell us kind of more briefly, we'll go at length later in the interview, but what is your current internship title and who are you working for? And can you give us some background on them?
All right, so I am a media marketing intern with the Television Academy Foundation. I think it's better known as the people who handled the Emmys. So they're in charge of the Emmys, which is the annual awards for television. And so they do the award shows, they do the media behind the award shows, they do just the media behind everything in general. They do a lot of like think of it almost like a club that you sign into where we have a lot of participants who want to be a part of the foundation. They want to be within the foundation. They want to be more active participants in the special events that we host for our members and the academy members. And we have a lot of donors who donate to the academy. So it's like a big collection of people. I feel like a lot of people don't really think of the Emmys or the Television Academy Foundation as more than the award show that happens yearly.
Yeah, well, I'm one of those people. I had no clue. I had no clue that they did that, but I've never even stopped to think of like who hosts all of those, these large shows.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool. And in order to get this role, did you apply on a job site or did you have maybe a referral from a friend or were you reached out to by uh, the Television Academy Foundation?
I actually found out about it through a referral from a professor. The professor heard about the opportunity and they forwarded it to me and a few of my other colleagues. And so I saw that and I thought that looks like something I'd really like to try out. And so I applied. I just took her referral. I applied straight to the woman who ended up being the person who oversaw me at the internship. And I sent her
Oh,
an email, I sent her my resume, my cover letter, and a little information about me in the email and why I was interested in the position.
those are the best. Oh man. And during this period that your professor gave you this or let you know about this opportunity, were you already in a period of sending applications or was this kind of out of the blue, why not? And you just threw out an application?
I was already in the process of sending out applications. I was actually looking for more places, and so it kind of just arose at a really convenient time for me. And I was like, I'm going to go for it.
How many would you say applications? People are always curious in the numbers because some people send 500 and not get anything, and then other people send 5 and get an internship. How many kind of during this period of applications would you say you had sent out before receiving this role?
I had sent out about 15. I had kept a list of all the places that I applied to. And I had like a checklist system almost where I checked, yes, I sent it. And then I waited to hear back. And if I heard a negative or a positive, then I would kind of mark that on my list. That way I could go through my options and figure out which ones worked and which ones weren't options anymore.
Well, that's a really good average, having done 15 and securing a role. That's huge.
Mhm.
The process for being accepted into this internship, I kind of want to know how long it took. So from the moment you reached out to this person directly by email, how long did it take before they gave you the yes, you're in? A couple weeks, months?
So it was actually a bit more complicated than that. After I sent the email, I think it was about 2 or 3 days, and I got a response email, and it was the woman who would end up being my boss, and she told me, "Hey, I saw your resume. I just wanted to offer you a interview slot." She gave me dates. She's like, "If this is something you'd like to do, we have interviews. Choose a date, and then after the interview is conducted, then we'll discuss and deliberate, and then we'll get back to you in about a week." So it was a very like fast moving process, but I
Oh,
did have to interview for it. I couldn't just submit my resume and be accepted right away.
oh yeah, I know. Of course. So you would say it took about around a week and a half to fully go through the process and get the role.
It took actually about, I want to say, 2.5 weeks
Got it. Got it. Okay.
officially.
That
Yeah.
always, yeah, that question just to help put it in perspective for people, like
Mhm.
how long does it take to actually get a real internship? Well, that's good. Some people, oh man, I've heard of people saying it's taken them like 4 months. I can't
Mhm.
even imagine pursuing that.
Yeah, it
And
all depends on the position.
yeah, so on your resume, what you were applying with to this role, what experience um, what experience would you say you were kind of applying with? Not everything, but what do you think was more relevant on your resume that stood out to them?
Well, I think my resume was kind of me getting my foot in the door, me showing this is my major, I'm familiar with what's happening here. And as soon as she saw my resume and accepted me for the interview, at the end of my interview, she said, if you have any media samples, any writing samples, anything at all that shows that you're literate in media or that you can be creative in media, if you could send that over, that would be great. That way we can take a look at it. And that's where I found I was really able to find a strength because I had analysis essays I'd written on movies. I work with Canva a lot, so I'm familiar in creating like templates for media posts.
Mhm.
I use TikTok every now and then, and I'm familiar with the process of making TikToks. And I know that the Emmys has a TikTok account, so I'm like, okay, maybe it's a little embarrassing that it's a TikTok of me, but I can prove that I know how to edit, I know how to do these things. And so I think I sent them some Photoshop material as well. And that was a total of, I think, 5 different things that I've created to show them that I can be successful in the position.
Part of your portfolio. And
Mhm.
were these things, were some of them projects like that you had to do for school, or were some of them completely independent personal projects? Kind of what was
So it was a
both?
mixture of both for sure. Mhm.
Awesome. And during the interview and after having sent those things, it might be the same answer, but I want to double check.
Okay.
What do you think, from your own point of view, what do you feel earned you the job? Keeping in
Mhm.
mind what you think the hiring manager thought of you, what got you the role?
I think it was speaking to the hiring manager, it was very much a easy experience. I felt like it went from them asking me questions to turning into a conversation. And it felt less like I was there being interviewed and more like we were having a thoughtful, intellectual discussion. And then she would turn around and be like, okay, well, let's do this question. And then she'll ask me a question. And then I think it was also that combined with my ability to prove that I can do what the job entails of me. And so I think the biggest thing was both me being able to connect with her in more than just a job standpoint, and me also showing, look, I can also do the job.
Got it. That was the answer I was looking for. That's fantastic. I didn't, before interviewing different people, I didn't realize how weighted the social interaction in an interview actually is. I think we tend to think about it as purely based on just your stats, just your resume. But yeah, no, the social interaction is an enormous part. So that's good to hear. That affirms that.
Mhm.
Now, moving towards your position specifically and what you do, is this a part-time or full-time role? Because I know you're going to school.
It's part-time. I worked about just about 14 hours a week,
Got it.
because it is 2 hours away from where I live. So there was
Wow.
one day where I would drive over, and one day a week I drive over and I have it in person at the academy, and then the other 2 days I work remotely.
Got it.
Mhm.
And what location is, not the exact address, but like what area? What area is this in?
It's in North Hollywood, so think of it just past Universal Studios in LA.
Okay, cool,
Mhm.
cool. And would you say, are you working with other interns as well, or are you the only intern for your maybe department or section?
There were two other interns I know there's a lot of people interning for the academy, but just in different areas, like different branches. I
Yeah,
believe there were three media marketing interns. They had a different availability than I did. So they worked on the same day together, and I worked on my own with them.
that's cool.
Mhm.
And would you characterize your position right now as more of a support role or more of a project-oriented role, or kind of a mixture of both?
A mixture of both. I would say that right now I'm doing a lot of support,
Mhm,
but I'm also getting to be in a control of that project. So they say, this is kind of what we're looking for.
mhm.
This is the campaign we're trying to do. If you could research it and then write copy for it, and then we'll prep the pictures to post. So that's kind of what I'm doing, where I'm helping prepare the post to be sent out to social media. So I
Oh,
do have, it's not just me doing research and they're like, okay, we're good. There are times where I do that, where I do help do research on certain people who will be featured, but it feels like I am taking an active role, especially so during the Emmys. When it was the Emmys, I was going to the Microsoft Theater. I was in the building with the celebrities doing
whoa.
live social media tweeting and content, and it was
No.
crazy. Mhm.
All right, this is the stuff I love. And there's also one, you mentioned copywriting. I'm not too familiar with that term, or at least I want to make it clear for everyone who's watching.
So writing copy is essentially, you know how when you see a post on Instagram, how normally they have like something written in the caption?
Yes.
That's what it is. It's what's in the caption. We call that copy, because it's not just someone kind of like typing it all at once. They read it through, they make sure it's proofed, they make sure that it's concise, and then it goes out.
That's super high liability. I wouldn't call that, when I said support versus project oriented, everything you just described is part of the project oriented. Support I meant is, like, you have to go, run to the printer and grab.
Oh, that kind of support. Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
yeah. So no, that's
No, no,
you're
no.
very,
It's very project oriented.
very
Yeah.
involved. Yeah,
Yeah. I saw it like I'm supporting them by helping them get this information.
yeah. Right. No, you are, wow. And the Emmys, I'm sure have you ever seen, I'm not sure if it was the Emmys, but the one with Ricky Gervais, it's like a notorious, that's okay. I'll probably ask you that later
Okay.
after the interview. Could you tell us, could you give us an overview, not going into too much detail yet, but if you could explain kind of your role so far. I mean, you actually just did, but if you could maybe reiterate it and get everything else, just explain kind of where you are helping out. And then afterwards, I'd love to dive into like a few of those, if not all.
Okay. I initially started helping out with some of the social media campaigns and writing copy and looking up photo assets for the individuals that we'd be featuring. I also helped with the Emmys, which was the big deal of my internship. And it actually happened pretty soon after I started. So it was a
Oh,
lot of craziness, a lot of learning on my feet and really making sure that I can keep up with the live tweeting, the live release of information on our social media platforms. So that was really exciting. Those were often about 10-hour days. And so
Oh,
that's where a bulk of my internship was spent, was driving there, being there, which was really interesting. And then I do a lot of like research. So if we need social media handles for certain actors or certain talent, then I look for those and I input them in a spreadsheet. Same with photos. If we need people's photos, then I go on our website and I go on, like the sites that we're directed to use for bringing photos and importing them into our Dropbox. So it's a lot of importing, a lot of looking.
yeah.
Mhm.
Were you anxious? Okay, great. You gave me kind of like 3 sections, and I want to get into each of those and elaborate more. But I have to ask, were you, especially for the Emmys, you must have been, well, I don't know, were you anxious or nervous going into that?
I was nervous. I was nervous on my first Emmys day because we had 3 days of Emmys. I went in for the 2 creative arts days, and then I went in for the prime time, which is the one that everybody sees on TV. So I was really nervous, honestly, for the first night because I didn't really know how the pacing was going to be. I had a list of what my roles would be, and it was long, and I was like, wow, I'm excited, but I'm scared because I don't know how to do this yet. I don't know how it's going to work. And so once I kind of just got thrown in, I got it pretty quickly, and then it became easier.
And so having experienced that, you could do it again just fine, right? Without, that's
Yeah.
all. So, okay, I want to get to the Emmys part, but for your first, you said kind of initial section of the internship, it had to do with social media and writing copy. Could
Mhm.
you give us, maybe you explained it well and generally, but maybe if you could give us more details on maybe a specific post or a post you were most proud of or something that kind of is a good example for what you did.
Okay, so we have different campaigns that kind of go up. We have Hispanic Heritage Month was one of the campaigns, and so we were looking for people who are of Latinx culture and of that ethnicity. We're looking for people in the industry, and we look to see, okay, which individuals are we going to spotlight? Which ones can we say like, oh, so and so has contributed this to their community. This is what they've done to uplift other Latinx people or other, female Latinx people. And so we kind of look and research their background and see, okay, how have they contributed? What have they done? What makes them stand out? And even we find some people who normally would be looked over, and we're like, let's put a spotlight on them, someone that maybe a lot of people don't know about. And so we did that for Hispanic Heritage Month. We did that for Native American Heritage Month as well. And then we also did Transgender Awareness Week.
And so when you two questions that just kind of sprouted off. One would be once you've found them and you know kind of who you'd like to showcase, how then, well, how do you find them? I feel like that would be pretty difficult to find this person among there's many communities. How do you find them and then connect with them and then showcase their story and who's writing the story? Because it has to be brief, right? It's on an
It has to be
Instagram.
very brief. And normally it's all done research. Like I never speak to them, it's all research based.
Got it. Okay.
And it's all, it's kind of, you look up who is of that ethnicity, or if you already know people, you look up information on them. You look up maybe, like I would go on New York Times and I'd see, okay, has New York Times interviewed them? Have they said anything about how they've uplifted their community or how they've made it in the industry as a minority in a very white dominated industry? So it's you'd be surprised how many articles there are, and it's really interesting to read through them and learn about the person while also constructing that post.
And so there's different components. Obviously, there's text, and then there's the retrieving the photos, and then there's the research element, which is getting that person. So you probably have cycled through being a part of, you're not doing all of it on your own, but you've probably experienced having to do each of those sections. Is that correct?
Yes, I have.
Okay, cool. And for the Emmys, can you walk us through those series of nights or that night? Because you said there was a long list of responsibilities. How did that look? You know, how did that look? Could you paint that picture for us?
Well, all of us on the marketing team were there, including the other interns. We
Mhm.
all had a job and we all had a platform that we were responsible for. So it was usually two people per platform. So it was me, I was working on Twitter specifically, and one of my other interns was working on Facebook. And so we had our assignment and we had the specific things that we had to do. Like when we received photos from the live event, we had to move them into a folder. That was one job. We had to put them into a post and we had to make a copy for the post and we had to get it approved by the other person who's a part of the team who approves what we've written and make sure that it's good to go out.
And then you send it out. Was there a quota for how many posts you needed to get out on Twitter?
There wasn't necessarily a quota. My boss would have certain things that she would want to get out. Like she'd say, okay, we have a very well-known actor who's here right now. Let's get a post of pictures of them. Or, oh, we just had the cast of so-and-so up here. Let's get their photos out. And so it was more like we had to, as many posts as we could create in the time we were there.
Wow. So basically, you would drop an idea and it was like, we need to make this right now.
Yeah, and then we would have the commercial break and they'd say, okay, you have 10 minutes, go to the bathroom, come back and be ready to keep going.
That is super high stakes.
It was.
How many posts would you say? Well, it's probably difficult to tell because it was across
Oh,
many
I
nights.
lost track. I have no idea. I just remember typing, sending.
Wow, that probably gave you a lot of endurance that's super valuable for any other future marketing job or anything like that.
Yeah, the really nice part about that though was after we finished our night of work for each night, they had this thing called the Governor's Gala, and that's where everybody gets to go, like all the actors, all the people who worked on all the talent for all the shows, they would get to go to this party and eat really nice food, and it was outdoors, and you kind of got to mingle with people, so that was really cool.
Wow, that's huge. Was
Yeah,
there
yeah.
anyone you saw that you were particularly excited about seeing?
I saw Coleman Domingo. He was in Euphoria and Fear the Walking Dead.
Oh,
He was really, really cool. Very nice. I got a photo with him.
I probably know that person's actor name in Walking Dead, but I'm not. It's not. That's a big star.
Yeah.
Well, man. If they have any openings, I'd love to apply. But I think you explained your role really, really well. And I want to ask you, moving away from what you did specifically, I kind of want to get your final thoughts on this whole experience.
Okay.
What would you say is the most valuable thing that you've learned from this internship?
Oh, that's a good one. I
And no
feel,
rush.
yeah, I feel like it's a two-part answer because I think this internship really got me to value teamwork, like how I love teamwork already, but this one, it really felt like all of us were working together and all of us had such big responsibilities that we were counting on each other very heavily. And we all needed to come through for one another, especially in a moment where it really counts. Like it was the moment, the Emmys, we had to be on it and all of us had to really prove that we were capable and that we were there to help one another as well as to get the job done. And so that's one thing. And I think the other thing I learned is actually one of the main reasons I took the internship was not to underestimate some of the smaller teams in the industry. Because I think a lot of people, when they want to go into movie making in any kind of sense, whether it's television or film, they often are like directors. They have so much on their plates. They're the busy ones. They're the ones who get the job done. But if you look at the smaller jobs like media marketing, it seems tiny, but the amount of work that they do, the amount of thought that goes into it, the stress that they feel from this as well is very real. And it just gets to appreciate how that smaller team works as a bigger picture in the big team. And so I think that was really valuable to me.
Yeah, that's super cool. I love hearing it from you because I can tell, it's very real. These are things that you've learned.
Mhm.
And has this internship, I'm adding a question.
Okay.
Um, are you are you more clear about where you want to go after this in terms of career or job? Like, did this help push you in a direction, or would you say that it was a great experience, but you're still in the exploratory phase?
It helped push me. It definitely did. I knew that I wanted to work in television, and I personally am a very strong writer. And I'm taking classes right now to write for television. So I'm
Oh,
very passionate in the television industry, and writing is definitely where I'd like to go with it. And so being a part of this internship allowed me to see not only how the media team works, but also how I got to speak with, writers. I got to speak with producers. I got to speak with people who are making it in the industry right now. And I get
mm,
to see, like, I remember there was this one moment when I walked into the governor's ball, and they had the after party with people standing everywhere, just having fun. And I was looking at the tables, and all the Emmy awards that people had just won were all on the table.
oh man, you were that close
I
to
was
it.
that close. I could practically touch one if I wanted to.
Oh,
But I remember thinking, I want to be one of those awards. I want to be a person
mm,
who wins one of those awards. And that really stuck out to me that night. And I remember that very clearly. And it was like a light bulb went off in my head. And it was like, what you are pursuing right now is what you want to do. This is where you're meant to go.
that that feeling is something that I think everybody wishes they had. That's something, that moment of clarity and realization. I'm chasing that as well. But Gabby, I'm gonna definitely save your name and contact because I know you're
Thank
I
you.
know you're going places.
Yeah,
Don't forget
thank
about me when
you.
you're. And
Mhm.
is there? This is the last question. Do you have any quick advice or advice in general for people who want to apply to a similar internship, if not the same one as you're in right now?
I would definitely say experience is important, but make sure you have something to show that you have the skills to do that job. So, like, I could say, I work at a craft store, so I could say, oh yeah, I worked at a craft store. Like, I'm good with keeping up with high pressure environments.
Mm,
But if I didn't also come in with also, I'm also a creative person in addition to doing this. Here's something I've made. Here's something physical that I can show you to prove that I've done this or that I am capable of doing the tasks you asked me to do. I think
mm,
that's the biggest piece of advice I could give, because if I hadn't sent those examples of my work in the portfolio, I would have felt a lot more worried that they would look at just my job experience and be like, well, she's never worked in film. She's never worked in this specific area that we're looking for. But if they
mm.
can see that I have the capacity to, then I think that was like the key that unlocked the internship for me.
Got it. Yeah. So definitely, work experience is good, but pursue, if possible,
Mhm.
other things that you enjoy that are relevant to the internship. Got
Exactly.
it. And well, Gabby, thank you for speaking with me and for everyone watching. I'm sure they will have enjoyed this, learning about your role and about you. We're going to leave Gabby's LinkedIn somewhere on the screen, or if you're reading this, it'll be on the page. If you're reading this, no, you'll be watching it. But yeah, and feel free. I'm sure she'd be okay if you wanted to reach out and
Oh, yeah.
connect or ask her any questions. And if there's anything else she wants to leave, like maybe a portfolio or social media, then you'll see that as well if she wants to do that. But otherwise, I want to wrap this up and close out and say, Gabby, thank you so much for coming out. I had a great time speaking with you,
Me too.
and I wish you the best in your future.
Thank you so much. You as well.
Cool. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.